Imagine if a video game turned into real life. Why don't we try it?
Wait, what? Whoa!
Throughout the late 1960s, the counterculture movement started and gained popularity quickly among the youth. One reason that the counterculture movement was commonly accepted by the youth is due to the rebellious aspects of the movement. Segregation in the Vietnam War was accepted by the majority. The main goals of the counterculture movement at the time was to gain racial equality and end the war in Vietnam. One aspect of the war that caused rage in the average American was the draft put in place. Others include the Gulf of Tonkin, which included increased U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. Also, the ending of college deferments, which allowed college students to be drafted into the war.
Now let's check back on our friend.
What? Where am I? What's going on?
You're in Vietnam, kid.
How is that even possible? I was just playing video games.
Well, I know what you mean. That draft was not called for. I just graduated from Kent State University.
You don't understand. What I mean, I was literally at home playing video games.
We all were, until the draft came.
What?
The government made all young adults go to war. We didn't have a choice.
Well, that's terrible. What's with this draft that you keep on mentioning?
Well, the government needed to have a draft because many people disagreed with the war and did not enlist.
What did people disagree about with the war?
Many people didn't believe in the war because it seemed like a lost cause due to the lack of an enemy. This is because the government is trying to contain communism.
What do you mean? Aren't the people shooting at you the enemy?
Well, yes, but what I mean is that there's no clear person or country to go after. For example, in World War II, Hitler was a clear target. Well, here, we ain't got none.
Well, then why are we fighting this war?
Kid, I think you asked enough questions for today. It's like you've been living under a rock.
Hey, don't leave me here.
The first teach-ins were done at the University of Michigan. This event became very popular throughout America. At its peak, about 200 faculty members participated by holding special anti-war seminars. In many universities, regular classes were canceled and speeches and rallies lasted over 12 hours. During the Vietnam War, the Charlie Company of the American Division's 11th Infantry Brigade received word of Viet Cong guerrillas taking over the My Lai village. The Charlie Company was ordered to kill any suspected Viet Cong members or sympathizers. However, there was no Viet Cong soldiers, so instead the Charlie Company fired upon the villagers. Many women and children were executed. This massacre was covered up until a soldier heard of this and leaked it to the media. Many people were outraged when this was leaked. This split the American public as to whether or not to support or prosecute against the soldiers. Led by Mario Savio, the Berkeley Free Speech Movement protested on behalf of students' rights. It spread to colleges throughout the country discussing unpopular faculty tenure decisions, dress codes, dormitory regulations, and appearances by Johnson administration officials. In May of 1970, students of Kent State University were peacefully protesting the bombing of Cambodia, but they unfortunately clashed with the Ohio National Guardsmen of the Kent State campus. When 4 students were shot, it became a focal point of the counterculture. The U.S. government began a draft for all males at the age of 18 or older. Many people didn't agree with the U.S. government's decision of creating a draft for young men. As a result of this, many people fled the country to Canada.
Many aspects of today's society has been shaped by the counterculture movement. For example, the voting age was lowered from 21 to 18, the draft was ended, laws were passed that gave women more legal rights against gender inequality, as well as more social acceptance, as they expanded their roles in the workplace. African Americans, working women, homosexuals, nudity, and non-traditional apparel all became generally more accepted.
The counterculture spread across the Western cultures until the early 1970s, consisting of anti-establishment beliefs and actions. There were many different components of the general movement, but most were characterized by a general distrust of the government, the notion of free love, the mind-altering use of psychedelic drugs, and an idealized notion of freedom. During the movement, hippies became the largest and most prominent countercultural group in the States. See, isn't that a little more interesting than playing a video game?